Welcome back to Charge Motion. My name is Saximus.
My name is Ghoul.
Well, what have you been playing this week?
Well, once the once the Guilty Gear Strive, the cadence was the same there. Guilty Gear Strive beta ended. I've been playing a lot of Street Fighter, especially with the balance patch that came out, earlier this week.
Yeah, and we will talk about that and the Strive beta soon. First, let's get trailers out of the way. Past 2 weeks, we've had 2 trailers for KOF 15, 3 new characters.
3 characters. Team Ikari, I believe,
yes,
is the team that they are all on together, and that team consists of Leona, Ralph, and Clark. Bunch of military folk. They're all in the army or whatever in the KOF universe. KOF, as far as I can tell, I played Leona in KOF 14, and she looks pretty similar in 15. I think the main thing that looks like that I noticed that was different about her is that her earring bomb can stick to you now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is neat. I don't know if it's like a different move, like if it's like a different version of the earring bomb, or if they just made it so that her earring bomb is sticky. But she didn't have that in 14. I don't know if it was in games before that. Clark and Ralph, I don't know a lot about in general. But I know that they are grappler type characters, and they seem to have a lot of like combos into command grabs and command grabs that start combos.
Especially Clark.
Yeah, Clark seemed to be really, really into like comboing off of his command grabs and into his command grabs. But they both look super fun. I was never really looked at those characters before. Because they didn't really look like my style, but ever since I started playing grapplers in Street Fighter V, I've been finding that I like grapplers more. So I might actually give Ralph a try in 15. So it should be cool. I will say though, I wasn't a huge fan of the dual trailer.
Yeah, that was a weird choice.
Yeah, I would have much rather it have been just 2 separate trailers, like showcasing each character. Because Leona did get her own trailer, but Clark and Ralph were put in the same trailer together, and it showed some gameplay of those 2 fighting each other, but it was hard to tell, which character is supposed to be being showcased here.
Yeah.
I would rather have focused trailers that showcase specific things about one character at a time.
And of course, it's different to, say, Pyra and Mithra in Smash Ultimate. Like, it's a stance character.
Yeah, it's a stance character that changes.
Yeah.
These are 2 separate characters that you can pick independently on the character select screen. So I personally didn't like the fact that they got put into one trailer together. I would have liked to see them showcased separately. Other than that, they look pretty neat. I mean, the animations and stuff in KOF 15, some people don't like them, and that's fine. I think the animations themselves look pretty good, and the character models look good. The particle effects, though, like the fire effects and like the purple aura for the new armor move type thing, it doesn't look satisfying. If that's a way to say that makes sense. But I don't know. I'm still gonna play the game. It still looks like a lot of fun. And I'm probably gonna play Leona and Ralph. I don't know who my 3rd character would be yet. Probably out of the characters that have been revealed so far, I'd probably play King.
I'd probably do King, Robert, and maybe Clark.
Robert looks cool too.
Yeah. I don't know. My expectations have not been shattered yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But speaking of SNK, I gotta ask if there's anybody from SNK watching. There isn't, but on the off chance there is. Y'all doing okay over there?
I know what you're going into.
You doing all right? Like, are you sure there's not like a gas leak in the office or something? Because so the good news. I'll start with the good news. We're finally getting Samurai Showdown 2019 on Steam.
On Steam,
2 years. It was available on PC, although only on the Epic Games Store, Google Stadia.
Stadia.
We're finally getting it on Steam. But the good news kind of ends there because, to my knowledge, the Steam page isn't up yet. It is releasing, and to my knowledge, at full price
Full price.
with none of the DLC included.
None of the DLC included.
With the net code it's had for the past 2 years.
No rollback.
Like 3 days after Guilty Gear. It releases in Steam on June 14th. Guilty Gear Strive drops worldwide on June 11th.
And I mean, I know the tagline for Samurai Showdown was "Embrace Death," but I think you're leaning into it a little bit too much there, SNK.
The only thing I can think of, and as I saw someone on Twitter post it, the only thing I can think of is, because E3 is before that they're going to reveal what the Guilty Gear character is going to be for Sam Show, and it's going to be like a crossover.
If it's not Biken, I'm going to be incredibly surprised.
Same. And maybe we'll get a Sam Show character as the first DLC character for going to be Biken. I don't know.
I was going to say, so my prediction is that they're going to reveal Biken for both games.
Yeah, that's a good guess.
Because we were told specifically that we're getting a Guilty Gear character in Sam Show. Mm-hmm. That is confirmed. We don't know who that character is yet. Biken is literally a samurai. Yeah. So, and she's not in the launch roster for Guilty Gear Strive.
Right.
So if I were a marketing expert, which I'm not, but if I were, I would announce that character. That's one, she's a heavily desired character.
Yeah, people like Biken.
People love Biken. She's a heavily desired character for Guilty Gear Strive, so that's why they were going to put her in the season pass, because they knew people would pay for her. Mm. So I can only imagine that they're going to announce her and announce her in Samurai Showdown at the same time. Because it doesn't make sense to announce her for Sam Show and then not for Guilty Gear. Unless she gets announced for Guilty Gear and then we get somebody else for Sam Show.
Yeah.
But my thought process is she's going to end up in both games, and she's going to be announced for both games simultaneously.
Yeah. And all this assumption kind of is for naught.
I mean, I don't know. I pre-ordered the deluxe edition of Strive, so whatever character it is, I'm gonna get them, and I'm probably gonna use them.
But yeah, like SNK, like so much about Samurai Showdown. It's a good game.
Samurai Showdown is such a good game.
It's so fun, and it's so, because it's Samurai Showdown. It's so unlike most other fighting games on the market today. Popular. I want to play it.
I have to say, if you have access to one or more friends who are interested in playing Samurai Showdown with you offline on a regular basis, it is absolutely worth picking up. If you expect at all, and I mean, we're still in the COVID era here, so most people do expect to play their fighting games online. If you expect at all to play Samurai Showdown online, don't.
If you want to try it out, Samurai Showdown 5 Special is $10 on Steam.
$10 on Steam, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it has rollback.
I think it might.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the games that got retroactively given.
Yeah, it's got rollback.
Yeah.
Samurai Showdown 5 Special.
I've actually never played Sam Show 5. So that should be cool. From what I understand, 5 Special was the Sam Show game.
Yeah.
It was that's the one that everyone likes. Mm-hmm. Outside of, the newest one.
Yeah. But I just got that neck. First we had Grand Blue Fantasy Versus that's going to get completely overshadowed by Guilty Gear.
Oh, absolutely.
And now we have Samurai Showdown.
And the worst part is, it's Sam Show isn't even an anime game.
Oh, no.
So it's Sam Show shouldn't sync to Guilty Gear. Right? They should
be able to coexist.
They should be able to coexist with different player bases. But you're releasing your game 3 days after?
3 days after Strive.
On Steam, at full price, presumably. They haven't announced any sort of discount or anything.
Yeah,
and you're gonna end up paying $100+ for DLC if you want to have the full experience.
It's 2 years old.
Game is 2 years old.
Moving on. Speaking of Guilty Gear Strive, you want to talk about the Guilty Gear Strive beta you play this past?
Yeah, I'm happy to give my thoughts on it. I did submit my feedback. A lot of what I'm about to talk about, I submitted it to Arc System Works in the post-beta questionnaire that they post at the end of every beta. If you played the Guilty Gear Strive beta, you should go on the Arc System Works Twitter and find that survey and give them your input, because how can they make the game better if we don't tell them what's wrong with it?
They put out the survey for a reason.
They do.
They want your feedback.
They do want your feedback. My feedback on what I played for the beta is, honestly, I liked the first beta better.
Oh no.
I didn't hate this beta. I still had fun playing it. The first thing that popped out most notably was the English voice casting. Some of it was awesome. Some of it I didn't like so much. It took me... Okay, so before I say this, I don't want to take anything away from the voice acting talent. Like, I never, ever, ever want to, harshly criticize voice actors and actresses, because they work really hard and they do an awesome job. But I was not a fan of Soul's English voice in particular.
I have not heard it yet.
To me, it was jarring for his character, the type of voice that he got.
Okay.
It took a while for me to get used to it and for it to almost start growing on me, but I don't know, it just seemed out of place. Everybody else though sounded pretty good from what I got from the little bit that I played.
Yeah. I've heard I've heard May. They both sound.
Yeah. Ramlethal sounds really good too. But yeah, that's in terms of the quality of the game, voice acting is pretty low on the list of important things, because you could always play it in Japanese if that's what you prefer, or turn the sound off. Yeah. Turn the voices all the way off. You can do that. I wouldn't recommend it because fighting games have a lot of audio cues, but you could if you wanted. As far as the game itself, there were a bunch of balance changes. I didn't play a whole lot of characters. I really only played Soul in the beta, so I could really only notice the things that were different about him. But there was some stuff that I noticed, like Leo can't combo off of his run through cross up anymore. So they took a lot of that type of stuff, like the crazy mix up stuff that leads into big damage. They kind of nerfed a lot of that, which a lot of people didn't like, myself included. Because me, when I think about Guilty Gear, I picture this wild, fast anime fighter, and Strive is a lot slower than XR or especially Plus R. Plus R is super fast. So I can see why people are cautious, looking at the gameplay as it is now. Personally, I don't hate it, because I'm not a returning Guilty Gear player. Strive would be my first game that I got into competitively. I noticed that movement felt a little bit slower in general, like walk speed and especially air dashing. It didn't feel good. Air dashing in the new beta did not feel good. It already felt sluggish in the first beta compared to, XR and Plus R, because they added a little bit of wind up to the air dash animation to make it easier to react to on purpose. But I kind of got used to it playing Strive, from the first beta. Then in the second beta, it felt slowed down even more.
Very weird.
It is weird. It was a weird decision, and I didn't love it. But all in all, it didn't kill the experience for me. I still had a lot of fun playing the game. I think they changed air backdashing as well. They cut the distance that you can backdash in the air.
Seems like weird.
Yeah, especially given that most anime games sort of center around air mobility. It seems kind of like a weird decision to limit that, But all in all, I had fun with the beta. I know it sounds like I didn't, because I just listed like a bunch of things that I didn't like, but when the game is in motion, it still feels awesome. Like, it still feels super fun. But yeah. I'm still gonna play the game at launch. I'm hopeful that Arxis will listen to what the community has to say about the state of the game. Oh, the one big thing that I noticed with Soul is that he can't combo off of Wild Throw anymore. Yeah. So in Plus R, and I'm pretty sure in XR, his Soul's command grab was a side switch into a ground bounce that left you airborne. He could combo off of it.
Right.
In Strive, in the first beta, it did not ground bounce unless you Roman canceled it. So you had to spend meter to combo off of Wild Throw.
I don't know how I feel about it.
So in the first beta, I was like, okay, that's fine, I guess, because the throw itself already does a lot of damage. So it's like, okay, if I want to combo off of this, I have to spend meter. That's fine. I got used to that. In the second beta, I tried to do the same combo. I did Wild Throw into RC, and it just left them on the ground. And I couldn't hit them with anything. So I couldn't combo off of Wild Throw. So if there's a Soul player out there, like, I don't know, like Sajam or something, I highly doubt Sajam watches this podcast, but hello. If he does, hello. If someone out there can help me, and if there's still a way that Soul can, in fact, combo off of Wild Throw, tell me. Because I couldn't find it.
Getting back to character trailers, we already knew she was going to be in the game, but we got first look at some gameplay for Chun-Li in Power Rangers Battle for the Grid.
And she looks nutty.
She looks nuts.
Oh my god, she's doing some crazy stuff in this trailer.
And more so than just, regular versus game stuff that we've seen her do in Marvel vs. Capcom before. She's
like comboing off of throws. Obviously she has like her EX air leg stuff.
Yeah.
She's like OTGing with her jump stomp. It like causes a ground bounce on OTG so she can extend combos. She's like bouncing people off of fireballs and ground bouncing with her overhead, and she's just going absolutely nuts in this trailer. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly suggest you take the time to watch it, because Chun-Li is going to be nutty in this game. Or, excuse me, Blue Phoenix Ranger is going to be nutty in Power Rangers. And I'm excited because I like Chun-Li, and I like Power Rangers.
I never really played her that much because I know that outside of versus games, she's a charge character. Yeah. I don't typically like charge characters, but hopefully...
You play Big Band.
I like charge characters singular. I don't like charge characters plural. But, hopefully she won't be a charge character. But even if she is, I might actually try to pick her up. So crazy.
She does. She looks super cool. The way, like, she has so many ways to extend combos. And, like, I know that Battle for the Grid is a versus game, so it's like, there's always crazy stuff going on, but it's something else. Like, maybe it's just because Chun-Li's animations are so impressive.
But and her suit, the Blue Phoenix suit,
looks really, really good. Her face model, because she does have a costume where she's not wearing the Ranger suit. It's not quite, MVCI bad, but it's not great either.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, so if that really bothers you and you don't like the way her face looks, just wear her default Ranger suit.
Yeah, just don't use the skin.
Yeah.
Easy.
Problem solved.
And speaking of Street Fighter V, there was an update this week.
There was an update this week.
I've not had a chance to play it.
I have. I've played a good amount of it. I probably have like a good 4 or 5 hours in with the new patch. Some really interesting balance changes. Like, first of all, it's weird that we get a balance update this big in the middle of a season, without it being like a whole new title update. But there's some really notable changes. Like, most notable is they got rid of Dan's Infinite.
No.
But there's a but. They did it in a really interesting way.
Okay.
So technically, the loop that can repeat infinitely is still possible. However, they added on Dan's fireball, they added a random chance that it will be a buffed version of the move that causes a knockdown.
The red fireball, right?
The red fireball, yeah.
No. It's random?
Yeah. So anytime Dan inputs fireball, there's a random chance. I don't know like what the actual like statistic is for it, but there's a random chance that it will be the red fireball that does extra damage and causes a knockdown. And so what this does is it makes the infinite loop still possible, but eventually you'll get a red fireball and it'll knock them down and force your combo to end.
So it's a nerf disguised as a buff.
Yeah. So it's like they got rid of the Danfinite, but they also technically kind of didn't. But it's like so think about the situation, because in the situation, first of all, you have to be in the corner to set up the Danfinite.
Right.
So if you are doing the loop and get the red fireball, they're now knocked down in the corner. Which is a very advantageous situation for any character.
Yeah.
But I think that, first of all, I think they should have just left the Danfinite alone, personally.
It's not easy to do, right?
No, it's not easy to do, and it's very difficult to set up. But I think since they did feel the need to get rid of it, I feel like this was the best way to go about it. Instead of just patching it and saying, you know, fuck you, this doesn't work, just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, because you can still get, like, maybe 3 or 4 reps of the loop in before you get your red fireball. So it's totally random and up to the game whether or not you get to actually do the Danfinite.
Do we know the odds of having the red fireball?
I personally don't.
Okay.
I don't know if the odds of getting the red fireball are out there, or if they've been made public, but I personally don't know them. Apparently you, excluding the fully charged version, so if you charge the Godoken, then you can't get a red one. But if you charge it, then obviously you can't do the infinite.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a really interesting design decision. I applaud Capcom for making an interesting decision around getting rid of that infinite.
And given kind of who Dan is,
it fits.
It fits, yeah.
It's and they said that, right? They said it in because Capcom does the balance overviews for each character, and they said that they wanted to do something that was within the spirit of Dan as a character. I think the way that they did it was superb.
Yeah.
Because now Dan players, you know, you get something out of it, right? You don't just lose a thing.
I mean, you technically do, but not, like...
Right. Well, what I mean is you don't lose a thing without gaining something, right? Like
yeah, okay.
You now have this red fireball to use when you get it randomly, but when you pick Dan, that's what you sign up for. Some other notable changes that they made over the patch was, I think the biggest one that popped out in my mind is that Zangief's EXSPD is no longer throw invincible.
Ooh.
And that's huge, because before, EXSPD would beat any throw on startup. So if you were neutral and both input throw at the same time, Zangief was invincible to your throw and you would get EXSPD.
Wow.
That's no longer the case.
Okay.
It is no longer throw invincible, so you can throw him out of it, presumably.
I think a few Cammy nerfs. I'm okay with.
Cammy nerfs are fine because Cammy is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But so they did nerf Cammy a little bit. They made it so that the throw invincibility on her EX spiral arrow is removed, which I didn't even know that move was throw invincible because nobody has ever used EX spiral arrow on purpose to beat a throw.
Yeah.
They always, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna use DP, right? She has an EX DP. And they they shortened the projectile invincibility of EX Spiral Arrow, which I think is really, really interesting. Because really, before, her EX Spiral Arrow was completely projectile invincible from frame 1 through the end of the animation.
Right.
Now, the projectile invincibility starts on frame 4. Which means that if you're like in a tighter fireball situation, it's going to be much harder for Cammy to react to your fireball and EX Spiral Arrow through it. It's going to be a whole 3 frames harder, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is.
Yeah.
So they close the window on that, so she can't just sort of react to fireballs like in middle neutral like that, like she used to be able to. So I think that's really interesting. The other interesting thing that they did to Cammy, which I think was a really good touch, was they made her dive kicks, the cannon spikes, or cannon strike. Sorry, cannon spike is the DP. They made all of her dive kicks have longer whiff recovery. So it is now 6 frames easier to whiff punish Cammy's dive kick.
Okay.
And I think that's necessary, because before she could just dive kick around the stage, and it was really hard to punish her at certain ranges, and it was like a really cheap movement option for her. But now it becomes easier to whiff punish those. It seemed like in the overview of like the whole patch, they wanted to do 2 things. They wanted to buff underused V mechanics. So like characters that like never had a V skill get used, they would buff that V skill.
Yeah, I'm looking through the patch notes right now. Number of it. V time costing.
Yeah. Like they nerfed the hell. I mean, they buffed the hell out of Laura's V skill 2. Because no Laura player ever uses V skill 2.
I don't even know what V skill.
It's like a command jump that she can like either do an air fireball or like an overhead kick out of, and like it hits on the way up, so she can like combo into it. But it's not as good as having the command dash available, because her V skill 1 is a command dash, or it's an overhead, or it's a command dash into an overhead.
Yeah.
So it's like her V skill 1 is like way too good for V skill 2 to ever really get used. I think I don't see these buffs to V skill 2 making IDOM pick it, right? Like I don't think that's gonna happen. Now IDOM is gonna go win NLBC with V skill 2 and make me look like an idiot, but if that's the case, that's the case. As a Laura player myself, I don't think the buffs to V skill 2 make it worth using over V skill 1, but they tried, and that's the intent that they have behind a lot of these changes. The other thing that they wanted to do, I guess, was as like an indirect buff to V-Shift. They started limiting characters' throw invincible attacks. And so the changes to, EX SPD for Zangief, EX Spiral Arrow for Cammy.
Right.
They're sort of like removing throw invincible moves that like aren't DPs. Because I guess like having throw invincible attacks makes the mix-up easier to use V-Shift or something like that. I'm trying to think of like the way to word it, because like V-Shift beats throw, but you don't get the V-Shift break. So it's like having access to V-Shift and a throw invincible move was like too strong or something like that. So they wanted to limit throw invincible moves. You can read it in the Capcom, on the Capcom website, because they talk about like the overview of all of the changes and like what the intention was. And that's more or less what they said. I had a pretty hard time understanding it, if you couldn't tell from my awful, terrible attempt at summarizing it.
I think you did.
But definitely go onto the Capcom website and take a look at it, because it's interesting changes to the game. Oh, yeah, Balrog his dash straights got nerfed. Medium and heavy now have less pushback, so they're easier to punish. That was a pretty big one, I think.
I saw Jury's one of the few characters that did not get touched.
Jury did not get touched.
I'm kind of sad about that.
We all are. Yeah. I don't think Jerry is one of those characters that I just don't think is ever going to get buffs in the areas where she needs them. Like, they keep buffing Jerry, but they keep buffing the things that she's already good at.
Yeah.
So, like, they're not... Like, yeah, her combos are really strong, but they keep buffing her combos. It's like, her combos are already strong. Give me some pokes. Like,
yeah, for real.
Like, yeah, standing medium kick is good. But, like...
She's only one. Crouching light.
I think it's standing light punch is Jerry's 3-frame.
Oh, yeah.
But most characters only have one 3-frame.
That's true.
I think Ibuki stands out to me as an exception. I think both standing and crouching light punch are both 3-frames for Ibuki, something like that. But yeah, I think Jerry is just in a place where she's never going to get the buffs that she actually needs to be like a solid character.
That makes me very...
It makes me sad too. It makes me really, really sad. But, you know, it is what it is. Every game has one of those characters. But yeah, so that's pretty much like an overall summary of the Street Fighter V update. If there's stuff you want to know about a character that I didn't talk about, which is most of them, you can go on the Capcom website and look at the changes for yourself. Capcom, I think, does a really good job of explaining their intentions with these patches.
They do, because every character has a couple paragraphs, sentence or two. But what about them was...
Yeah, and I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think more companies should start being, more open about those changes like that. Nintendo. Even Tekken. Like, Tekken's patch notes are, like, notoriously difficult to read. But... yeah, it's definitely good practice to tell your players why things are changing. Oh yeah, G got fucking mega buffed.
Oh yeah, look at that.
So G, the big thing they did to G was they made it so that... So if you're not familiar, G has a level up mechanic where he can get up to 3 levels of presidentiality. And when he's... And as he goes up in the levels... his moves get buffed. Like, his special moves get buffed. They do more damage, they have different properties, etc. What they did was that when G is at level 3, they made it so that he can still do the level 2 versions of those moves. So before...
they have different properties.
Because they had different properties than the level 3 versions. So when G is level 3, he still gets access to the lower level versions of his attacks by using light or medium buttons.
And if he does heavy, he'll get
the level 3 version. And so that opens up, like Brian F talked about it in a video, because Brian F actually plays G. He mentioned how there are like combo extensions and combo routes that G couldn't do when he was in level 3 because of the way his properties changed. But now he gets those combo back because he can do the level 2 versions of his moves when he's in level 3. So it's definitely a huge change to the way the character plays. And I think it kind of makes sense. Like, I feel like he should have always been like that. Yeah. Because, leveling up should be a substantial buff, right?
Yeah.
Like, having to manage a level mechanic is difficult. So you should be rewarded for doing that.
In Five, you already have to manage both your EX meter
and your life meter.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, but G has a completely other reason.
Yeah,
I love G. I really hope he goes.
He is a pretty cool character. I'd be surprised if he doesn't come back in Street Fighter 6, to be honest. Especially since he sees a lot of play.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more popular characters.
But yeah, so yeah, G got probably the biggest overall gameplay change that I've seen out of the roster. Everybody else just everybody else that got touched, because not every character got touched. I think Guile didn't get touched. Yuri didn't get touched. Ryu didn't get touched. I think Ken didn't get touched either.
Ken did.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. yeah, I think there's a handful of characters that didn't get changes, but most of the cast did. And most of the cast got changes kind of to their V mechanics because they want to try and get more diversity with people picking their V skills and V.
You know what would help? Having people want to choose specific V mechanics if Capcom explained them in game.
Oh my god!
Just on the CSS
Man.
when you're choosing V skills and V triggers, just a little one sentence blurb, what it does. Why I gotta do homework? Why are you making me do homework, Capcom? The information already exists. Just give it to me, please.
I want you to explain what it does in the move list. I don't even need to see it on the character select screen.
Oh yeah, you're right. That too.
Like I look at I try to pick up a new character, and at this point I've played enough Street Fighter to where I can usually kind of figure things out.
Yeah.
But if I'm new to Street Fighter and I'm trying to learn a character, like, what do I even do? Like, I look at my V triggers, I'm like, okay, so I press both heavy buttons. If I'm a new player, I don't know what that does. I mean, I can figure it out because it's just a hitbox.
Yeah, and like, Ed's V trigger 1 is.
Oh, Ed, yeah. The big orb that he throws.
Yeah, the borrowed time.
Yeah. But like, tell me that in the move list.
Yes, please.
Like, there's no description for what it does. Like, if it's like an install V trigger, like Seth's V trigger 1, where like I can extend moves and stuff,
or Nakali's, yeah.
Or Nakali's, tell me that. Don't just tell me this move changes when you use V trigger 1. Like, that doesn't translate in a newer player's brain very well.
Yeah, how does it change?
How does it
new
change?
Things can you do with it? And like and I know we've talked about this before, like developers withholding it.
Yeah.
Like the information already exists.
Give it to us.
Just give it to us, please.
That would be enormous if you explain, because like when you highlight, if you go to the V system, you highlight V trigger 1 or V trigger 2, it tells you nothing except the technical name of the move. It doesn't tell you what it does. It doesn't tell you what it changes.
Then if you have special moves that have properties that do change under your V triggers, it has a little V trigger icon. It doesn't tell you what changes.
Yeah, it doesn't. So we need more information in the move list, which is, I'm going to say it again, I've said it like 3 times on the show, but Guilty Gear Strive is excellent with that. It tells you in the move list, when you highlight a move, it tells you obviously the input and the name of the attack, and it gives you on the right side of the screen, it gives you a brief description of the move and what it's for.
That's really good.
And it tells you about like special properties. Like, it tells you like the 6P, the universal anti-air. It tells you flat out in the move list that it's upper body invincible.
Wow.
And there's a small video clip that shows you what the move looks like when you input it.
Oh, that's so good.
So it's like, it's so good. Like, tell me what the move is for. Show me what it's supposed to look like when I do it. Just give the players information. That's what this boils down to.
Speaking of information and fighting games, switching away from specific game news, I want to give a shout out to Infil.
Oh man, Infil is... So I knew of Infil's work because I play Killer Instinct. And Infil, along with the help of many others in the community that are credited on the website, created a comprehensive, essentially a Bible for Killer Instinct that tells you everything there is about everything in the game.
ki.infil.net.
Yes, and if you're interested in Killer Instinct, definitely start there. There's breakdowns for every character and every move and like how to read frame data and what combo breakers do. Like, literally everything you could ever wish to know about Killer Instinct is in that website. ki.infil.net. Now, Infil is back. And he's doing some things for the rest of the community that don't just play Killer Instinct.
This is such a huge thing, dude.
Infil has created the Fighting Game Glossary.
over 800 fighting game terms, both general fighting games and game specific, defined with Japanese translations. A lot of them have video examples.
Yeah.
Particularly for mechanics or specific moves and stuff. And one of the things I love is that if you click on let's go to the Street Fighter page, go to crouch cancel infinite, and infinite combo is underlined. You click it, and it'll show you the definition for infinite combo immediately underneath that. It doesn't open in a new window, just right underneath it. And like a tree, you look at the infinite combo. Oh, what's gravity scaling? You hit that right underneath that, and then you look at gravity scaling. Oh, anime games. I'm going to look up the definition of anime game. Yeah, and it shows you the tree of where you started. So it's so brilliant.
It's absolutely wonderous, the amount of efficiency that the information is presented with on this website. There is a page there to donate to Infil for the work that he's done.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure. I think he said somewhere on here is way too secure.
Yes.
Yeah. On the contact page. But first of all, like he has like all of the main big popular games.
Yeah.
He has pages for all of them. Just looking across right now, it's Smash, Street Fighter, Tekken, Guilty Gear, Killer Instinct, Marvel vs. Capcom, Blaze Blue, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur, Under Night, Samurai Showdown, King of Fighters, and
yeah. So you can just click on one of those games and it'll start listing you terminology that's specific to that game.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, if there's a term that's in the description of a term, it's underlined with a link that you can click on, and it'll drop down a segment to tell you what that subterm is.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. If you go to the homepage, there's a term of the day. So I presume every day the website or Infil himself will just pick a term to showcase for you to read about.
In case you're curious, the term of the day as we are recording this is Taunt Jet Upper from Tekken.
Yes. An extremely difficult but powerful technique for Brian in the Tekken series. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But yeah, so...
And there's a little video.
Yeah, there's a little video.
They have videos of the techniques. And the videos like are not like YouTube embeds either. Like they're hosted on the site.
Yep.
So like if you won't have to worry about a YouTube link going down and suddenly the finely crafted video example becomes...
He's showing the technique in slow-mo.
Yeah, he is. They'll show the technique in slow-mo. They'll show it in different situations.
Yep. If the term applies to multiple games, he'll show you examples from different games.
Yeah, like for the one for Wave Dash, it shows Smash Melee and Rivals of Aether and Tekken.
Yeah. It's huge props to Infil. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think of any other people off the top of my head that he worked with. I know Hi Fight helped with the Japanese translations. Mm-hmm. So big shout out to Infil and Hi Fight that I know off the top of my head. But this is a huge step for the fighting game community.
Yes.
Like just having a place to go to look up terms that you hear people saying, especially for new people that haven't been in the scene for as long.
And even people like me who have. There's a lot of fighting game specific terminology that you might not pick up for a while. Like let's say I don't know what a rekka is. I don't have to ask you what a rekka is a million times. I can just go to the glossary and look up what a rekka is.
Yeah. I think it'll be exceptionally good for watching tournaments.
Yes.
Because if you're watching a tournament, especially for a game that you don't particularly play, like maybe it's a game you're interested in and you just want to watch some tournament sets, and the commentators start talking about things that you don't understand, you can just go to this glossary, type in the thing that they say, and learn about it.
Yeah.
I think Under Night is a big one for this because there's a lot of very unique mechanics in Under Night.
Yeah, Under Night is a wacky series.
Yeah, like things like grid breaks and chain shifts and like...
I finally understand the grid system now. I've been playing Under Night casually for a long time, And I just never got it. And they have a thing for the grid system and like video examples of all the different interactions with it. It's so good.
Yeah, I can gush about this for days. Just like having information available for people who want it has been such a huge problem for fighting games in general. You've always had to go like digging to the depths of a forum or
God forbid a Discord.
Yeah, a Discord server.
Nothing against Discord. It's just that Discord is a terrible place to store.
Yeah,
make a wiki.
Discord
please.
Is not a good place to store information, and it's not a good place to look up information quickly.
It's really not.
But this glossary is a huge boon to the community.
It's glossary.infil.net.
Yes.
Works on mobile.
Do it. I'm going to put a link in the description of the video, so if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see it down below. I highly suggest donating to Infil if you can. Obviously, if you can't, no big deal. But they've earned it. The team that has worked on this website have absolutely earned it. And not only do I want to shout out Infil and everyone that helped work on it, I want to thank them.
Yeah,
personally, from me to you guys, to Infil and Hi Fight and anyone else that might have worked on this. Thank you. But so for the topic that I wanted to discuss today for the end of the show was a problem that I'm going through currently right now. And that is the process of picking your main. And I don't mean playing the game and picking your main character. I mean choosing which character is going to be your main character in a fighting game. What are your thoughts? When you get a new fighting game for the first time, turn it on, how do you find your main?
I already have certain archetypes that I grab. I like all-rounders, but I really like zoners. I mean a lot of zoners. Scizor and Pokken and Meek Ultimate, Barry and Grand Blue and Sun Priest Spell. So I'm always gonna look for the zoners.
Right.
I don't play too many rushdown characters. I don't play too many grapplers. I don't like charge characters. I like charge character singular. So I'm already going to gravitate towards the archetypes that I already have a history with and I know I'm going to like. But every now and then, just trying out characters I find one that surprises me, like Arizona, and then it's Fighting Herds. She's a rushdown pseudo grappler. I don't play those very often, but she just kind of clicks for me. I think that's the big part. It kind of clicks for you. And when this question comes up, and also kind of like why do you play fighting games? I think back to Magic the Gathering of all. Because Mark Rosewater, who is one of the lead the head designer for Magic the Gathering, he said before that when they are designing new cards for Magic the Gathering, they do so with 3 different types of players in mind. Timmy, Johnny, and Spike, or Tammy, Jenny, and Spike. The Timmy player is the one for whom Magic is first and foremost a social activity. Like they're a kid in school who plays it with their friends during lunch or during recess. They'll open a pack and find like a big dumb creature, like a 7/7 that's a 7-drop and with a really situational ability. Is it good? Probably not, but it's big and it's cool and like, oh, this card is so cool, I gotta put it in my deck. So if that was you, fighting game players, that would be just going for the character, like not the function, but the character specifically that you like the most. That's how I would interpret that anyway. And there are a lot of character loyalists, and I would willing to bet that every single one of us is a Timmy player in some way, shape, or form, because it's the fighting game community. We do this with our friends. We do this to have fun. So it might that might be the kind of player who always gravitates towards the character personality. Second type player is the Johnny. Johnny player is the combo fiend. In Magic, they are the ones who will scour through cards from old sets, find a bunch of cards from completely unrelated sets that happen to interact with one another in a really weird way, and they'll build a deck out of it. I'm a Johnny player, at least when it comes to Magic. And for you, that you might be the lab monster. You might be the one who pushes everything that the game not only can do, but the game won't stop you from doing. And so you might want to go for like a really technical character, character you can really express yourself with. The first one that comes to mind, first character like that comes to mind is Steve in Smash Ultimate. Steve is nuts. Steve has a ton of moving parts, like a ton of resources to keep track of. But the amount of wacky stuff that Steve can do in the hands of a good player is nuts. And the third top players is Spike. Spike is the competitive player. They will, they'll have no qualms whatsoever about dropping $1.50 on a deck, if that's all the good cards they need to win. And those in fighting games, if you're a Spike player, you probably just gravitate immediately towards the top tiers. That's okay. And there is no right or wrong personality to be. There is no right or wrong way to play fighting games. If you're having fun, you're doing it right. And,
that is true.
Yeah,
that is absolutely true.
But I don't know. I just think it's an analogy that's worth. Not really. It's a comparison that's worth keeping in mind. When thinking about what kinds of players what kinds of characters you gravitate to.
But a character in a fighting game is also a set of tools.
Yes, it is a function.
It is a function. They are not just functions. Let me be clear.
Yeah.
But they are, in some substance, functions.
Yes.
And you have to know what type of player you are before you can make the decision on what type of tools you're looking for.
Yes.
So for me, when I pick up a new fighting game, I always click on the character I think looks the coolest first.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to do it, right? Because I've said it before, I'll say it again, characters sell fighting games.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to play a fighting game for hours and hours and hours and lab and grind, and obviously you don't have to do those things in order to enjoy fighting games, but if that's what you're going to do, you need to like the character that you're looking at. Yeah. They have to be appealing to you in some way, otherwise the game's just not going to be fun.
Yeah, that's why I say that I'm willing to bet that all of us have at least a little bit of Timmy.
Right. But once you understand, the way that you like to approach fighting games, then you can start to look at the function of the character.
Yeah.
So whenever one of my friends picks up a fighting game, like, for the first time, I always hear the question, which characters are beginner friendly? Which characters are easy to play? And the answer is none of them. There is no such thing as a character that's going to make a fighting game easier. Because it's always going to be an uphill climb to increase your skill. And you're always going to be losing a lot to players that are better than you. And that's just the way it is in fighting games. Everybody loses. I don't believe that there's a fighting game player that exists that has won more games than they have lost total. I just don't think that's a thing.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, show me, because I want to meet that player. But you need to pick a character that you have fun losing with.
Yes.
Because losing is going to be what you're going to be doing for a long time when you first pick up a fighting game. Mm-hmm. No matter what character you pick, that's going to be the case. The game is going to be hard anyway, so you might as well play the character that you enjoy.
Yeah.
So if you're playing Dragon Ball FighterZ, pick your favorite Dragon Ball characters. And just play the game, experiment with the game, see what they do, etc. If you're playing Street Fighter, a lot of people say, I'll just pick Ryu because he's the basic guy. But Ryu is actually kind of ridiculous right now.
Yeah. And I didn't really get super into Street Fighter V until I picked up Juri. Juri is nothing like Ryu.
I got into Street Fighter V with Juri too, and I ended up dropping her. I don't play Juri anymore. And the reason I did that was because the more I played Street Fighter V, the more I realized that when I'm playing the game, I really value characters that kind of just work.
Yeah.
I used to be, I think it's Johnny, that wants like a lot of self-expression and wants like a complicated lab monster character to push the limits of the game.
Yeah.
Over time, I realized that I'm not Johnny. I am Spike. I am, but I still lean a little bit into Johnny in the sense that I won't pick a top tier character just because they're top tier, right? Like there was a period of time where Abigail was top tier in Street Fighter V. I wouldn't pick Abigail if you paid me money.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like Abigail as a character does not appeal to me.
So I don't care how good Abigail is. Abigail could have a one button win the game attack, and I wouldn't pick Abigail.
Yeah.
Just because I don't like Abigail, but there are people that do, and it's great because fighting games are diverse and there's something for everyone.
And then I think about those three archetypes: Timmy, Johnny, and Spike. You are probably some combination of the three.
Yeah.
Very, very few people fit cleanly into one box.
Yeah.
Like, the whole Timmy aspect is pick a character you like using. But, the Johnny aspect is, be at least a little bit willing to go into the lab and just experiment and see what happens when you just do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you saw me doing that before we started recording today.
Yeah. When I got here, you were labbing Seth stuff.
I was. Fire. And so, knowing what I know now about myself, and like the time that I spent with Street Fighter, I know that I'm a player that values a solid game plan, good all-around tools, and strong rewards for winning situations. And so I've messed around with so many characters in the past 4 months that I've been playing Street Fighter V again. I tried to play Juri, I tried to play Chun-Li, I tried to play Sakura. I went through... Who else did I try to play? I spent a little bit of time trying to play Falk. That didn't go well. And I
don't think I know a single Falk player.
Valcion plays Falk.
Valcion does play Falk. Hi, Valcion.
Hi, Valcion. I landed on Laura for a while. I've been maining Laura a lot for like the past 2-3 weeks. Then I realized that Laura is a rushdown grappler that relies on 50-50s to win. Yeah. And I used to be the type of player that was all about that. But the more I went about it, losses just kept getting more and more frustrating because I didn't feel like I was as in control of the outcome as I wanted to be.
Yeah, when your matches are decided by coin flips, eventually you're going to come up tails over and over and over again.
And so it started feeling really frustrating losing with Laura because I felt like I should be winning because I'm controlling these situations, but Laura controlling a situation is still a 50-50. And obviously there are better Laura players than me that make that not true. Like Idom wins all the time with Laura, but I'm not Idom. So what started as me wanting to pick up a secondary to cover matchups that I hated, because I realized that I hate playing against Sakura with Laura, and I hated playing against Ed with Laura. I was like, let me find a secondary character that I can cover these matchups with. I went through a few. I played Sagat for a little while. Kind of liked Sagat, like as like a zoner. That was like really interesting to me, like playing a zoner, because I usually don't do that. But even then, I ended up getting frustrated because I felt like I couldn't do anything once my opponent got in, which, is the archetype of a zoner. Yeah. But I wasn't happy losing that way. So I wasn't happy losing with extreme offense, and I wasn't happy losing with extreme defense. So I needed to meet somewhere in the middle. Right. And I landed on Seth. And for anybody that plays Street Fighter V, you know that Seth is a very good character, very well-rounded. Recently did get some nerfs, especially to their HP. Akuma. Seth has the same HP as Akuma now. Or similar, at least.
That's interesting.
Which is, like, low.
Yeah.
For the type of character that they are. But Seth gives me all of the tools that I feel like I need to control a match with my preferred playstyle. So, like, I can be a little bit aggressive if I want to. I can be more defensive if I want to. Yeah. And, I feel like when I lose with Seth, I lose because I made a bad decision. Not because my archetype got in the way. Yeah. So, I'm happy losing with Seth, so I decided that I'm probably just going to main Seth. Because I was like, I picked up Seth to cover these matchups that I don't like with Laura, but Seth also plays all of the matchups that I do like with Laura pretty well. I'm like, now I'm not just covering matchups. I might as well just play Seth.
Yeah.
And so that's the conclusion that I reached as I learned more things about myself as a player. It's going to take you, if you're a new fighting game player, it's going to take you a long time to figure out what type of player you are. And when you do, you'll know more about fighting games to make more informed decisions about what type of character you want to play, what kind of tools you want to have, and the type of game plan that you want to be subjecting your opponent to. Until then, the best advice I can give about picking a main is pick the character you think is the coolest. And once if that wears off, I say, because sometimes people pick their first character and that's their main for the rest of their life.
That's what happened to me with Skullgirls.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Like, my friend Dan, he's been playing Cammy since Street Fighter 2.
Jesus.
Yeah, and he's picked Cammy in every game that Cammy is in. And now in Street Fighter 5, she's totally busted. And so he's a Cammy main.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've been a Cammy main my whole life. I don't play her because she's high tier. I play her because I like Cammy. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Play the character that you think is awesome. And sometimes that character is your soulmate. Sometimes they aren't. And as you learn more about yourself as a player, don't be afraid to experiment.
Banning a character is not a monogamous relationship.
No, absolutely not. Actually, Brian F. recently, a few days ago, made a video titled, I might be paraphrasing here, but the title was something akin to Character Loyalty is a Mental Shackle.
Yeah, I watched that video. That was really good.
It was a really good video talking about how attaching yourself to a character so strongly that you refuse to switch no matter what is going to hold you back. And I think the perspective that Brian doesn't cover is the perspective where you'd rather lose with your character than win with someone else.
Yeah. And if you're okay with that, that's totally fine. But
that is totally fine.
If you're a Spike player and your goal is to win, your character might be holding you back.
Your character might be holding you back, and you shouldn't feel ashamed. You shouldn't feel pressured to stick with the character that you're playing. Don't let your character gaslight you. And don't let your friends gaslight you into sticking with your main.
Yeah. Experiment.
Play the character that you want to play. And if something looks interesting, try it out. You can ask anybody that plays fighting games with me. I go through mains like candy in all sorts of fighting games. I've played 8 or 9 characters in Tekken. I've played like between 7 and 10 characters in Street Fighter. I think the only game where my main characters haven't changed that much is Skullgirls. Because I'm always going to play Valentine and I'm always going to play Sarabella.
Yeah, see, for me, I'm always going to play Big Ban, but whoever has been around Big Ban has changed a lot over the years. Like, for me, with Rivals of Ether, before Rivals of Ether came out, a bunch of different YouTubers made videos on it. I fell in love with Crag the instant I saw him, and I'm still maining Crag to this day.
Yeah. So sometimes character loyalty sticks, and sometimes that character is good for you. Other times they're not. For me, that's Jerry. Like, I still have urges to go back and play Jerry. I did the other.
One of us.
So let me tell you a story about what happened the last time I tried to go back to Jerry.
All right, what happened?
I was in Ultra Silver.
Okay.
Which is literally one rank below Gold. I was like 400 LP down away from Gold, which is about 5 wins.
Yeah.
I was about 5 wins from getting out of Silver for the first time and getting into Gold in Street Fighter V. I suddenly had this overwhelming, powerful urge to just pick Jerry. So I was like, okay, I understand more about the game now. Jerry is my favorite Street Fighter character aesthetically. Maybe I know enough about the game now to make her work for me.
How did that work out for you?
I ended that night in Super Bronze.
No! You went from Ultra Silver all the way down to Super Bronze?
In one session. In one sitting. Trying to play Jerry again. And I'm over Jerry now. I'm over it. I'm not going back again. It's not gonna... I'm still fighting my way back up from Super Bronze.
That hurts, man.
After that, because this happened maybe like 5 days ago. So I'm still fighting my way out with Seth to get back to Ultra Silver where I was. So yeah, sometimes that first character you click on isn't the one that's gonna stick with you.
And that's okay.
And that's okay, but pick the one you think is the coolest first. Because you need that initial pick to get you interested in the game, and so that you can start learning what type of player you are to make a more informed decision down the line.
Yes.
More or less, that's pretty much everything I have to say on the matter.
Yeah, same here.
Play the character that you want to play. Think about the reasons why you want to play that character.
Mm-hmm.
You want to play that character because they're awesome. You want to play that character because their moveset is fun, or do you want to play that character because you think that tool set is the one that's going to bring you the best chance of victory,
or some combination
thereof. Once you figure out exactly what you're looking for, it'll be much easier to make that decision. But you got to put the time in up front in order to learn that about yourself and make those informed decisions later.
And if you love playing fighting games and you play with them enough with the right people, that process is just going to happen naturally.
Oh yeah,
not even going to have to think about it.
You don't have to sit there and think about, oh man, what type of player am I? You can just play the game.
It's good. You'll just figure it out on your own.
You'll be like, damn, I really wish I had a fireball. So then you'll go and you'll pick a character that has a fireball, and then it snowballs from there. But yeah, that's the long and short of it. Pick the character that you like, and don't be afraid to change as your tastes change. Because as you learn more about yourself and as you learn more about fighting games, the things that you value in a character are going to change. So don't be afraid to follow that.
That's about all I had.
Same here.
All right. You follow us on Twitter. Follow me at 5Aximus because Aximus was taken.
And you can follow me on Twitter at xghoul with a 0 because Ghoul was taken.
And follow the show at Charge Motion, which miraculously was not taken. We also submit your clips for clips of the week. We want to see their clips.
Yes.
Send them to us. Any game. It doesn't matter what game it is.
It doesn't matter what game it is.
Send it to us. We'll break it down. We'll analyze it. We'll shout you out. We'll talk about it. We'll compliment you.
For those who are, returning fans of the show, we're doing something new with Clips of the Week. Clip of the Week is now going to be a separate video from this one. So you will no longer see Clip of the Week during an episode of the podcast. And that decision was made so that we can more easily make the transition to provide audio-only options for the show.
Yes.
Because, if we put the show up on whatever audio-only platform, those listeners wouldn't be able to experience the Clip of the Week segment. So our Clips of the Week are going to be handled from now on in separate videos that you will also be able to see on the YouTube channel that you are currently watching. So thank you guys for listening.
Good fight, good night.